Hey bros, welcome to the Steroid Journals. This is a video series where I chronicle my step-by-step involvement with anabolic steroids, everything from being curious about them, to researching them, to buying them, to using them, what the results were, and beyond, and every little step in between. What this video series is not is me advocating the use of them. I'm not here to tell you whether you should or shouldn't use them, or which ones you should or shouldn't do. I'm just telling you what I did. And that's all this is just basically like a vlog series of what I've done personally. Not here to instruct anybody about anything. And the reason why I'm making this video series is because I was looking for something exactly like this while I was researching them to decide if I wanted to use them or not. I was hoping to find some kind of video blog series where somebody was like, okay, I'm researching it and I'm thinking about using them, and then the next episode is like, okay, I bought them and here's what the process was like, and then the next episode is like, okay, I'm using them and here's what that whole thing is like, and then the next episode is like, okay, here's what the results were. And that's what I was looking for, and I was not finding that. So once I decided to go ahead and do them, I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and make the video series that I was hoping to find but didn't. So this video is just going to be like an introduction, me telling my history and why anabolic steroids was even on the radar for me at all. And basically it all goes back to when I was a kid and was watching cartoons with like superheroes or He-Man or whatever, where these characters were drawn to look like heavyweight bodybuilders, you know, super jacked or whatever. I was like, wow, I want to be that strong and look like that. And then eventually when I got really into pro wrestling and was like, wow, guys really do look like that. It's not just a cartoon, you know, watching movies like the old Hercules movies that would star like the bodybuilders of that era, or like Conan movies where Arnold Schwarzenegger is playing Conan, and eventually I learned like what a bodybuilder was, and that's why they looked like that, because they were bodybuilders and they went to the gym every day and that kind of thing. I was like, oh, I want to do that, I want to be a bodybuilder, but I was a kid, I couldn't go to the gym. And then eventually when I learned like what bodybuilding was, that you go and you stand on a stage and all that kind of stuff, that had no attraction to me whatsoever. I didn't want to be a bodybuilder if I had to like compete with other people and go and stand on a stage or whatever. That was not interesting to me in the least, and for some reason in my brain I bundled that all together, like in order to look like that you had to compete in bodybuilding. I don't know, it doesn't make sense. But so I just filed it away, like, okay, well, I don't want to do that, I want to look like that, but I don't want to do that, so that's not for me. Filed that away, didn't think much of it. And then as a kid I was kind of chubby. I was only 5'7" and weighed 160 pounds. Not super fat or anything, but definitely not fit. So when I got into high school I was like, damn, some of these guys on the football team are jacked and I want to look like that. And I remember I wanted to be a bodybuilder, I wanted to work out, why don't I do that? Again, I still, for some reason, I just didn't want to get into that whole thing, so I decided what I wanted to do at that point was lean out and get my abs. I didn't really understand, like most people out there, that abs are, quote, made in the kitchen. You know, I didn't realize that it's mostly about nutrition, so I did crunches every day, and that didn't really seem to be working very much, so I was getting pretty frustrated. But it was working slowly but surely, and coincidentally I was also starting to become more interested in nutrition. I had a horrible diet thanks to my mom, who is obese. I ate really terrible food like every day up until this point where I realized, oh, I eat a lot of really high calorie fattening food. So cut back on that shit, and eventually I was slowly getting more and more fit. But then by, I would say 18 is when I started doing cardio and had started doing push-ups and stuff. So I was getting more fit, but I was still very uneducated about, you know, what I was doing. So eventually, when I did get my abs, I had dropped down from 160 pounds down to 130 pounds, a little less than that, and had pretty defined abs. I was pretty happy with that, but then I was like, well, fuck this, now it's time to get jacked. So that was about when I was 21, when I decided, okay, I'm going to start going to the gym now. So I started going to the gym, and I'm one of these kind of guys where when I set my mind to something, I become obsessed with it. When I say I went to the gym, I mean I went every fucking day. If a friend was like, hey, let's go to a party, I was like, fuck that, I've got to go to the gym. Same with nutrition. I was eating super clean, wouldn't let anything get in the way of nutrition, cravings go or whatever. So I was pretty fucking dedicated, and it was working. I started at 130, gained up to about 145 of lean muscle mass, and was looking pretty decent, but I hit a plateau, and I just couldn't get over it. So I loosened the hold on nutrition a little bit and let myself eat more calories and maybe a little more fat and a little more carbs. And I was able to get all the way up to about 170, but my abs were gone. But there was a pretty decent amount of muscle there. I hit another plateau at that 170. I just couldn't get over that. I got extremely frustrated. Like a year or two went by and I still wasn't getting anywhere, and I was super frustrated. And this was also right at the end of a bad relationship, so I was very frustrated about that. And so I just kind of stopped caring about the gym. I stopped going, started eating bad foods again. I would still go to the gym, but I was half-assing it and I wouldn't go very often. My dedication was completely gone. That continued for quite a few years. I would convince myself that I was doing a decent job with nutrition and whatever, but I was not. I definitely wasn't. In retrospect, I was half-assing it. So not this past New Year's, but the New Year's before that, I decided, well, fuck this. I want my abs back. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get my abs back. I really dedicated myself, stopped eating bad foods, started doing cardio every fucking day, and it worked. January 1st, I started out at just under 200 pounds of fat, not much muscle to speak of. And then by about June 5th or something like that, I was down 50 pounds, down to about 150, had my abs, was looking pretty decent again. It's like, well, I accomplished that one, so now it's time to add muscle. I was very frustrated though because I had lost so much of the muscle I had gained, and I was talking with my friend who's a bodybuilder, a super huge guy, and he's one of the bodybuilders who's actually really open about anabolic steroids. He freely admits he does them. As we'll talk about in future episodes, most bodybuilders won't even admit that they use them. Most of them claim to be natural even though they absolutely are not. This guy totally admits it, and so I was complaining to him. I was like, oh geez, it's going to take me forever to get all of that muscle back. I had lost so much of the muscle I had built. And he was like, well, why don't you just use some anabolic steroids and get yourself back to where you were, and then you had reached that plateau. Well, now you can shoot ahead of that plateau. And I was like, yeah, but I've never used any illegal drugs in my life. I've never even smoked weed, for fuck's sake. So the idea of doing anabolic steroid, injecting an illegal drug, was completely not me. I just didn't feel like that was me. And then of course I was worried about all of those side effects you hear about, like, oh, it will shrink your dick, or it will put you into a roid rage, or it will kill you because you'll inject an air bubble into your vein. And I eventually learned that all three of those things, complete bullshit. There's no such thing as roid rage. First of all, you're not even injecting the steroids into veins, you're injecting it into muscle tissue. That's not even a thing, and you can't even get enough air into the syringe to inject it into the muscle tissue to do anything. So none of that is legit. But I decided I was going to go ahead and research the fuck out of it until I felt comfortable with making a decision. And I hadn't decided what that decision was going to be, but I was going to research as much as humanly possible. And so I learned about all of the side effects that are actually legitimate and are worrisome. Things like oral steroids can be toxic to your internal organs. If you already have male pattern baldness in your family history, if your mom's dad is bald, it will accelerate that. You'll go bald all the quicker. Even if you're not prone to acne, it's going to cause some acne. And I had horrible acne as a kid. It made me so depressed, and I didn't want to get horrible acne again. I learned about all of the real side effects, learned about all of the fake side effects that are just fear-mongering, oddly enough perpetuated by the health industry, but have been scientifically proven to not be real. So I finally felt comfortable with what the legitimate concerns were. And I guess that's where we'll end this video here. In the next video, I'll talk about going through that decision process. So see you bros then. Bye.